And today I will be quite happily promoting the 1936 film of The Charge of the Light Brigade, directed by our main man, Michael Curtiz. Along with being the basis for Iron Maiden's famous song The Trooper, Lord Alfred Tennyson's poem was the basis for a memorable and, at the time, highly successful historical epic feature film. As a preface, I would just like to make a disclaimer. I do enjoy certain British Empire adventure films. Do I shamelessly enjoy them? Mostly, but not entirely. It's a movie. I don't feel significantly wrong for watching a film glorifying Roman or Mongol empires either, or Russian in the case of Umberto Lenzi's Catherine the Great picture. But obviously it's slightly different in this case, positing a specific empire as good or just rather than just an entity, if you will. Anyway, this is a splendidly fun picture. Curtiz directs Errol Flynn in a non-swashbuckler effort, although a couple of scenes betray their Curtiz and Flynn's established trademarks. Mostly this is a period peace war epic, coated as a love triangle melodrama primarily, and Flynn is portrayed as a somewhat unlikable but redeemable, pompous stiff. It is established how his character's younger brother has fallen in love with his fiancée, who is portrayed by Olivia de Havilland, much younger here than in 1972's The Screaming Woman, if you recall that film of the day. The scandalous couple begrudgingly acknowledge their feelings and attempt to keep their emotional purely in air and speech, at least not until they inform Geoffrey, Flynn's character, about the situation. But this is no time for a love triangle. The Crimean War looms. This is a great blanket film. I am not whatsoever thrilled about these shot leopards and tripped horses, but at least it makes for impactful felt cinema moments. Actually, I have read that Flynn, a noted horse lover, physically attacked Michael Curtiz over his treatment of the horses during that famous climactic titular charge. I don't blame him. Actually, that sequence begs discussion in particular, one because it is a remarkably, albeit exceptionally cruel, piece of cinematic action. The authenticity of its intensity is a thing to behold, truly an affecting sequence for one reason or another, less for the narrative gung-ho and more of the outright spectacle. And yes, speaking of this spectacle, this brings me to mentioning one Guy Debord. In his 1978 feature film We Spin Around the Night Consumed by the Fire, Debord uses footage from the charge in this film in order to help demonstrate the, quote, battles of the avant-garde, quote-unquote, to quote Sven Luteken's work Guy Debord and the Cultural Revolution. Debord himself wrote in 1989 that the use of the footage was an attempt to, quote, crudely and eulogistically represent a dozen years of the Situationist International's actions. I find it fascinating, this further relevance which the film holds in the history of cinema, being considered an encapsulation of an attitude of power structures which a particular vanguard, in this case elements of the Situationist International, sought to replicate. This kind of romantic idea that, to quote Debord directly from that particular film, quote, avant-gardes have only one time, and the best thing that can happen to them is to have enlivened their time without outliving it. After them, operations move on to a vaster terrain. Too often have we seen such elite troops, after they have accompanied some valiant exploit, remain on hand to parade with their medals and then turn against the cause they previously supported. Nothing of this sort need to be feared from those whose attack has carried them to the point of dissolution. That's fascinating. Writer Benjamin Noyes, a noted Guy Debord commentator, has written, quote, this is not indulgence in nostalgia for its own sake, but the record of what is threatened with being washed away by the tide of spectacular society. Without any awareness of this history of struggles, you become cast adrift in the eternal present of spectacular consumption. Also, Debord is not simply applauding himself or the Situationist International for their achievements, although he has no false modesty. Instead, he records brief unities of time, moments of passion and authentic life. Like the charge of the Light Brigade, the moment of the Situationist International is spent in what can appear to be futile action. However, out of this spectacle of futility, Debord tries to release the passion for revolution that has become lost. Unquote. It is interesting stuff. I just love how strange it is that this bastion of colonial callousness becomes central to the Marxists' analysis of their attempt at societal change and struggle. But yes, I do have fun watching this film. Here's another picture I would love to view if I was sick in bed. I enjoy its spectacle, its warmth, its digestibility, and its commitment to the narrative. There is a pronounced build-up and tension, telling a tale of military insensitivity and love conquered through war. This is not a technical masterpiece per se, at least not consistently anyway, nor is it a spellbinding piece of screenwriting or of philosophic necessity, but it is an extremely satisfying romp all the same, at least for myself. There was also a 1968 film of this narrative directed by the acclaimed filmmaker Tony Richardson. It is also a very admirable picture to be sure, but it lacks a certain charm, I may suggest. I suppose it is this picture's one-note inconsiderate pride. Fuck it, I do feel a little bad for enjoying this film. It's like drinking milk, consuming seafood, driving a car, smoking anything, the odd cheeky wang. I'll be damned. I love this film.